The sound of my mother's voice was the last thing I expected to hear on a quiet Sunday morning, especially not coming from inside my apartment before I'd even had my first cup of coffee. "Sky!" she called out, her tone honey-sweet but edged with that familiar steel that meant trouble. I froze mid-step, my keys still dangling from my fingers, realizing the door hadn't even been fully closed when she let herself in. And then I saw him, Ethan, leaning against my counter like he owned the place, his smug grin already setting my blood on fire. "We need to talk," Mom said, brushing invisible dust from her blazer, the same one she wore to every confrontation she wanted to win. "About family responsibility." Her words landed like a slap, cold and rehearsed, and my stomach sank before I even knew what she meant. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share. Your support keeps the stories coming. I took a step back, clutching my tote bag against my chest. "You broke into my place?" I asked, voice tight. "The door was unlocked," Ethan replied casually, tossing an apple core into my sink. "You should really be more careful, sis. Especially now that you're a big-shot analyst with a fancy salary." I felt the air thicken. "So that's what this was about. You've been talking to Dad again, haven't you?" I asked, narrowing my eyes at Mom. She smiled, too calm, too calculated. "He mentioned you got promoted," she said, "and that you're making more than enough to help out your family. It's time you start giving back, Sky." Her words dripped with entitlement, and I could already feel that old guilt clawing its way up my throat. "How much?" I asked flatly, because with her there was always a number. Ethan snickered. $4,500 a month should cover it," he said, as if he were suggesting something as reasonable as splitting a dinner bill. My laugh came out sharp, bitter. "You're joking." "Do I look like I'm joking?" Mom shot back, her tone slicing through the air. "Your brother needs help getting back on his feet, and I'm still paying off the house repairs. You have a good heart, Sky. Don't turn it cold now that you've made it." My heart thudded against my ribs. She was doing it again, twisting guilt into obligation, love into currency. "I'm not your bank," I said quietly. "You can't just demand money." Her eyes flashed. "I can demand whatever I deserve," she snapped. "You wouldn't have this life if it weren't for me." I wanted to scream. She always did this, rewriting history until I became the villain. "You took out loans in my name," I reminded her. "You ruined my credit for years. And now you think I owe you?" Ethan rolled his eyes. "Here we go again," he muttered. "You always play the victim. You've got everything now, a condo, a career, new friends, while Mom's been scraping by. Where's your gratitude?" The word grated against my skin. Gratitude. I'd worked every day since I was 19 to dig myself out of the hole they'd put me in, and now they wanted me to feel bad for succeeding. "Get out," I said firmly. "Both of you." Mom tilted her head, studying me like I was a stubborn child. "You'll regret this," she warned. "Family doesn't abandon family." I felt my throat tighten, but I held my ground. "No," I said. "Family doesn't exploit family." Her face hardened, the sweetness evaporating. "You've changed," she said. "You think you're better than us. That job's gone to your head." Ethan snorted. "Good luck explaining this to the relatives," he said, smirking. "We'll make sure they know you're too good for your own blood." The slam of the door rattled my picture frames when they finally left. I stood there, breath shaking, hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped my phone. For a few long minutes, all I could hear was my own heartbeat, loud and uneven. Then my phone buzzed, 3 times in rapid succession. Unknown number. "We know what you make, Sky. Stop being selfish." Another message followed seconds later, this one from Mom. "We'll talk again soon. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I blocked the number immediately, but the damage was done. My sanctuary suddenly felt like a cage. I spent the next hour pacing, checking every lock, closing blinds that had been open for years. I wanted to believe it was over, that they'd cool off and leave me alone, but a familiar dread settled in my stomach, the kind that comes before a storm. The next morning, I went to work trying to act normal. But when I stopped by my favorite coffee shop, The barista handed me my drink with a hesitant look. "You okay?" she asked. "Your mom was here earlier asking about you." My hands went cold. "What did she say?" I asked. The barista hesitated. "She said she was worried that you might be getting into trouble. She asked what time you usually come by." I forced a smile and thanked her, but my legs were shaking when I walked out. She was stalking me. My mother, the woman who used to pack my lunch and brush my hair, was following me like a stranger. By the time I got to my office, I could barely think straight. My coworker Kara noticed immediately. "Sky, are you okay?" she whispered during our morning meeting. I shrugged it off, pretending to read my notes, but the truth spilled out at lunch. Kara listened, her expression hardening with every word. "You need to document everything," she said. "Every text, every visit. This is harassment." The word felt too heavy, too real. "It's my mom," I murmured. "She's just upset." "Upset doesn't mean she gets to violate your privacy," Kara said firmly. "You need protection." That night, when I got home, my mailbox was stuffed with opened envelopes, all addressed to me, all torn. My pulse spiked. I pulled them out one by one, bills, statements, a letter from HR about my salary adjustment. Someone had been snooping. My hands were trembling when I saw the faint smudge of foundation on one torn flap, my mother's shade. I knew it instantly. She'd been here. I called my dad, my last fragile link to sanity. "She's crossing lines, Dad," I said, voice breaking. He sighed heavily. "I warned you she'd do something like this. She's angry you cut her off. She thinks she can guilt you back into her control." "I'm scared," I whispered. "She knows where I live." There was a long pause, and then he said, "I'll find you someone to talk to. Someone who can help legally." This can't go on. The next day, a tall man in a gray suit showed up at my office, introducing himself as Martin Keller, attorney, calm and composed, the kind of person who made chaos seem manageable. "Your father asked me to reach out," he said, sliding a card across the table. "If what you've described is true, Sky, you're dealing with harassment and attempted financial coercion. We'll need to start documenting everything." I stared at him, unsure whether to feel relieved or defeated. "Do you really think this will stop her?" I asked quietly. Martin gave a small, knowing smile. "It will if we do this right. But first, you have to stop thinking like a daughter. You need to think like someone protecting their life." His words hit me harder than I expected. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just family drama. It was survival. That night, I sat in front of my laptop scrolling through messages, screenshots, and security notifications. Each one felt like a piece of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. My cursor hovered over a new email that had just come in. No subject line, no name, just one sentence that made my blood run cold. "You can't hide from your family, Sky." I turned toward the window instinctively and froze. Down on the street, under the flickering lamplight, was a figure I knew too well. My mother, staring up at my building, holding her phone to her ear. My phone began to ring. My phone kept ringing as I stood frozen by the window, staring down at the shadow of my mother, illuminated by the streetlight. Her figure small but unmistakably determined, like a ghost refusing to leave the world it had already ruined. My fingers twitched toward the phone, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Each ring carved through the silence of my apartment, faster, louder, like a countdown I didn't know how to stop. The moment it went to voicemail, a message notification appeared almost instantly. "You can't ignore family forever. Sky, we'll talk soon. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share. Your support keeps the stories coming." I turned away from the window and slid down the wall, my breath coming fast, the kind that doesn't reach your lungs. For a long time, I just sat there in the dark, phone clutched tight, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. When I finally called Martin, my voice was barely audible. "She's outside," I whispered. "Right now." His tone stayed calm, steady, like he'd handled dozens of storms just like mine. "Lock your doors, stay inside, don't engage," he said. "If she doesn't leave in 15 minutes, call the police and record everything." This is exactly why we're building a record. I nodded even though he couldn't see me, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every noise outside felt amplified. The hum of cars, the wind against the glass, a muffled laugh from someone walking by, and then nothing. Just silence. When I finally gathered the courage to peek outside again, the street was empty. No mother, no shadow, just the faint smell of rain in the air. But the message remained, pulsing on my phone like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. The next few days blurred together, half work, half paranoia. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every knock on the door sent adrenaline through me. I installed a new security system, cameras at every entrance, sensors on every window. I told myself it was for peace of mind, but deep down I knew it was for war. Martin called daily to check in, his calm voice anchoring me. "We're filing a restraining order," he said on Thursday. "But we'll need more evidence of harassment, texts, visits, any attempts to access your accounts." "Keep everything." I started a folder labeled Proof. Inside it went screenshots of messages, security footage of her car driving slowly past my building, a photo from my doorbell camera showing Ethan standing there with a grin and a takeout bag, as if pretending this was a family visit. I didn't answer. He left after 15 minutes, but not before sliding something under my door, a printed note that read, "You can't freeze us out forever." I crumpled it into my trash bin, but it didn't stop the shiver crawling down my spine. At work, Kara was my only confidant. "They're escalating," she said after I showed her the footage. "You need to go public with this. Tell HR, maybe even your manager. They need to know what's happening." I hesitated. The thought of my colleagues whispering about my family drama made my stomach twist. I'd worked too hard to be seen as the composed one, the reliable one, not the woman with a broken past. "I'll handle it quietly," I said, though even I didn't believe it. That Friday, we had a team dinner at a downtown restaurant to celebrate our quarterly success. I almost skipped it, but Kara insisted. "You need to breathe," she said. "They don't get to take your normal life away." I tried to believe her. I dressed up, smiled in photos, laughed when the wine flowed, and for a moment I forgot. Until I didn't. Near the end of dinner, as I reached for my purse, my phone lit up on the table. Unknown number again, this time a photo message. My smile froze. It was a picture of me taken from outside the restaurant window. My co-workers were visible behind me. The table, the candlelight, all of it captured by someone standing on the street. Kara saw my face drain of color. "What is it?" she whispered. I turned the screen toward her, my fingers trembling. "She's here," I said. We rushed outside, but the street was crowded, the night loud with traffic and laughter. Whoever had taken that photo was gone. That was the night I decided it had to stop. The next morning, Martin met me in his office, surrounded by stacks of case files and quiet authority. "This isn't about money anymore," he said. "This is about control. We'll fast-track the restraining order. I'll need statements from you and your father." I nodded, but part of me still couldn't accept it. "She's my mother," I said almost to myself. "She gave me life." Martin's gaze softened. "And now she's trying to take it back." His words hit hard, but they were true. That night, I went home and opened my journal, a habit I'd started in therapy but hadn't touched in weeks. I wrote down everything. Every text, every fear, every twisted moment of guilt. By the time I stopped, tears blurred the ink. I didn't realize how late it had gotten until I heard a faint click from the hallway outside. My breath hitched. It was the sound of my building's front door opening, then closing softly. My phone buzzed, and when I saw the message, my blood went cold. "You shouldn't have gone to a lawyer." I ran to my window. Down below, parked across the street, was a black SUV. The headlights were off, but I could see two silhouettes inside. My hands trembled as I dialed Martin. "They're here," I whispered. "Outside my building." He didn't hesitate. "Call the police now, Skye. Stay where you are, lights off, don't move until they arrive." My voice cracked. "What if they come up?" "Then you lock yourself in a room and keep the phone on the line with 911. Do not open the door." I hung up and called emergency. My voice shook as I explained, giving them my address. The operator told me to stay calm, but every second felt like an eternity. I could hear footsteps in the hallway now, slow, deliberate, moving closer. My heart hammered so hard I could barely breathe. I crept toward the door, peering through the peephole. A shadow passed by, tall and familiar. Ethan. I stepped back silently, pressing my hand over my mouth. He stopped outside my door and knocked twice, lightly, almost teasing. "Sky," he called softly. "Open up. We just want to talk." My voice was gone, swallowed by fear. Another voice, my mother's, came next, muffled through the wood. "You can't hide from us forever. Family finds family." I clenched my fists, forcing myself to whisper, "Go away." The doorknob rattled once. I jumped back. "Go away," I shouted this time louder. And then sirens. The faint wail of approaching police cars. I heard Ethan curse, footsteps retreating fast. I ran to the window and saw the SUV pulling off just as the flashing lights rounded the corner. The officers took statements, reviewed the footage from my security camera, and promised to file an incident report. But as they left, I caught one of them glancing at me with pity. Like they'd seen this story before and knew it rarely ended cleanly. That night I didn't sleep. Every creak in the building made me flinch. I sat on my couch with a baseball bat in one hand and my phone in the other, waiting for something, anything, to move. The next morning, Martin called. "We'll get the restraining order expedited," he said. "This is textbook stalking behavior. You're not alone in this, Sky." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But when I went downstairs to get my mail later that afternoon, I saw something that shattered that fragile hope. On top of my mailbox, neatly folded, was a photo. It was me again, this time asleep in my bed, taken through my bedroom window. I felt my knees give out. My hands shook so violently I dropped the photo. Someone had been inside my building, inside my privacy. And as I stared at the picture, I saw it clearly for the first time. My mother's reflection faintly visible in the glass of the window behind me, holding the camera. I don't remember how long I sat there on the cold tile floor, the photo still trembling in my hands, my pulse loud enough to drown out every rational thought. The image wouldn't leave me, the outline of my sleeping body, the faint reflection of my mother's face in the glass behind me, the flash of the camera captured mid-click. I felt violated in a way that words couldn't touch, like my breath had been stolen straight from my lungs. For a few seconds I just stared, frozen, until something inside me snapped. I wasn't scared anymore. I was furious. My fingers shook as I called Martin, my voice ragged when he answered. "She was inside," I said. "She got into my apartment." There was a pause, the kind of silence lawyers use when they realize something just changed the game. "Don't touch anything," he said. "I'm calling the police myself. We'll get a warrant and push for immediate protection. This is no longer harassment. It's breaking and entering." When the officers arrived again, they photographed everything: the envelope, the fingerprints on the window latch, even the smudge of lipstick on my curtains that made my stomach turn. I signed statements, answered questions, gave them access to every recording I had. My home didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. Martin stayed late, going over paperwork at my kitchen table, his voice steady even when mine wasn't. "She's crossed every line," he said. "We'll get the protective order by Monday. And Sky, when you testify, you don't have to protect her anymore." That night, I didn't cry. I sat on my couch with the lights off, the same way I used to sit in our old house as a kid whenever Mom and Ethan would fight and Dad would leave to cool off at a bar. The same fear was there, just dressed differently. But now it wasn't a child waiting for help. It was a woman realizing she was the help. The next few days were chaos. The case moved fast. Photos, logs, surveillance footage, testimony from my father, even bank data showing 17 unauthorized access attempts traced back to Ethan's devices. Martin organized everything like clockwork, each piece a weapon forged from years of my silence. When the hearing date came, I barely slept the night before. I kept picturing my mother's face, wondering if she'd look guilty, if she'd pretend, if she'd even recognize what she'd done. Walking into that courthouse felt like walking into the belly of every memory I'd tried to bury. Martin's calm voice guided me through it. Deep breaths, one truth at a time. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and tension. Mom sat at the defense table in a pastel suit, her expression serene, like she was at church. Ethan sat beside her, jittery, avoiding my eyes. When the judge entered, everyone stood. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint. Martin began with precision. He presented the bank logs, the messages, the photos, the security footage. With every new exhibit, I could see my mother's confidence erode a little more. When he played the voicemail of her saying, "You can't hide from family forever," a hush swept through the room. Then came the cross-examination. "Ms. Reynolds," the judge asked, "did you enter your daughter's residence without permission?" Mom's lips curved into a small, condescending smile. "I was just checking on her," she said. "She's been under stress, and I thought she needed support." Martin leaned forward. "With a camera?" he asked quietly. "While she was asleep?" Ethan's head snapped toward her, his face pale. "You said we never went inside," he muttered. "You said—" "Enough," she hissed, but the damage was done. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge's gavel hit the desk once. Order. When the noise faded, the judge's eyes locked on my mother. "You have violated your daughter's privacy, attempted to access her financial accounts, and ignored previous warnings. This court finds substantial evidence of harassment and unlawful entry." My mother's face went rigid. I didn't feel triumph, not exactly, just a strange, heavy relief, like air rushing into lungs that had been starved too long. The judge's voice carried finality. "Effective immediately, a protective order is granted against Vanessa Reynolds and Ethan Reynolds for a duration of 2 years. They are prohibited from approaching or contacting the petitioner in any form. Each violation will incur a penalty of $5,000 and potential criminal charges." The gavel fell, sharp and echoing. My knees nearly gave out, but Martin's steady hand caught my arm. "It's over," he whispered. For a second I didn't believe him. Even as my mother was escorted out, even as Ethan glared at the floor, I waited for the next twist, the next manipulation. But it didn't come. The silence after the gavel wasn't empty, it was freedom. Outside the courthouse, the sunlight hit my face, and for the first time in months, it didn't burn. My father was waiting by the steps, his eyes misty as he pulled me into a hug. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "You finally did what I never could." His words stayed with me. That night, when I returned to my apartment, I replaced the locks again. Not because I was afraid, but because it was my way of reclaiming control. The sound of the bolt clicking shut wasn't fear anymore. It was peace. Over the next few months, everything began to change. I focused on work, and when my manager called me in to announce my promotion to senior data analyst, I didn't hide it or downplay it. I let myself feel proud. Kara threw a small celebration at my place, and for the first time, my laughter didn't feel borrowed. Even my relationship with Dad grew steadier. We set healthy boundaries. No guilt, no pressure, just honesty. He helped me set up a structured allowance for his retirement, and I helped him with his budgeting app, both of us finally learning balance instead of burden. Therapy with Dr. Helen helped too. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean access, that closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build when you stop reopening the wound. By the time 6 months had passed, the girl who used to flinch at her phone had become someone new. My apartment no longer felt like a fortress but a sanctuary. The new biometric lock wasn't a symbol of fear, it was one of victory. I started mentoring young women in STEM again, growing my small program into something real. When I transferred 10% of my monthly income into the scholarship fund, it wasn't guilt anymore. It was purpose. One warm Austin evening, I was sitting on my balcony, watching the sunset melt into orange and rose, when my phone buzzed with a familiar name, Vanessa. My chest tightened for a heartbeat, but I opened the message. "I'm in town next week." Can we meet? For a moment, the old panic tried to rise, but it couldn't find a place to land. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I took a slow breath. I'm not ready, I typed back. But I wish you well. When you're ready to show change through actions, not words, let me know. Then I put my phone down. No shaking, no fear, just quiet certainty. Later that night, I opened my journal and wrote the final entry I hadn't been ready to before. Love without respect is just control. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Sometimes the bravest way to love your family is to protect yourself from them. I closed it and placed it on the shelf, next to my framed promotion photo and the small potted plant Kara had given me. As I turned off the lights, I caught my reflection in the window, the same window where fear once stared back at me. Now it showed someone stronger, calmer, finally free. I went to bed that night without checking the locks twice, without glancing at my phone for new threats. But just as I began to drift into sleep, the faint sound of a notification buzzed from my nightstand. My heart gave a small, instinctive jolt, but curiosity won. I picked up the phone and looked. It wasn't my mother. It was an email from Martin. The subject line read, Vanessa Reynolds, update. My breath caught as I opened it. Sky, it began, thought you should know. Vanessa and Ethan have moved out of state. They've officially withdrawn their appeal. You're safe. I smiled for real this time. A slow, trembling smile that reached somewhere deep. I placed the phone down and whispered to no one. Finally. The city outside hummed softly, the night air warm through the open window. I fell asleep without fear for the first time in years, my last thought simple and quiet. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, you're safe now.